Okay, let's talk a little bit about Kamala Harris. I don't know
Yeah,
how
okay.
big a book I don't know how big a book advance she can get. I really don't. And I know the market, somewhat. I don't think she's going to get like an Obama level advance. Dan,
What do you
what's
think? Just give me a ballpark. What do you think?
if she promises to make news in the pitch,
Uh,
I think she can get four.
Million.
If she won't promise to make news, ah, two and a half.
Oh, yeah, I even think that's a little high.
It might be. I'm being optimistic for her. What do you think her speech rate will be, Sean?
Um, I think that she can probably get somewhere around. It also depends on like what she tips her hand that she might be doing. Like if there's promise
Yeah.
that it looks like
Yeah.
she's running for governor, she might be in the I would say in the 80 to 100,000 range for the next
Oh
six.
my goodness. Are you serious?
Yeah.
That,
I
that,
was going to say
I
100.
see. I think she thinks she's going to get five, and I think she'll get somewhere between 125 and 200.
I think maybe, but the
There's a lot
problem
of
is,
inflation.
look, I as
Yeah,
a
but she's
guy,
got to say something. Like, what is she going to
but
talk?
here's the other thing. Like
Leadership or
I will just tell you that having lived in this, that number one, there's a lot of corporations right now that do not want to. I mean, do you want to be
Yes.
at your board retreat publicly and say, "Oh, we
I,
just
I,
spent 100
yeah.
grand bringing
No.
Kamala
I
Harris in"?
know. I
One.
know.
Number
I know.
two is that these guys generally want some insight, right? They're basically saying, "Hey, what's going on in DC?" And you're basically saying, "Hey, we lost the White House. We don't control either Congress, and the court is controlled by conservatives. So tell us what you think." I mean, hey, guess what? The American people just rejected you. We're not going to pay you 100 grand to hear that. So,
Okay. Her first book was a bestseller, which I didn't remember. Do you think if you were a publisher, what would you expect her to write? Does she need to talk about Biden's cognitive decline?
yeah,
Does
that's
she
the
need to
million
write?
dollar issue. I mean, that's what everyone
Well,
wants to
but what
know.
else? But what else? What else? If you were a book publisher and you were sitting with her in a meeting and she was pitching and she's like, "We want 4 million." What would you say she needed to write about besides what she knew about Joe Biden's cognitive decline? What else could she
look,
know?
I mean,
The 2024 campaign.
right. She
But
needs
what
to talk.
about what about it? What about it? What it was like to be with Oprah? Like,
No, like mistakes that were made and picking Tim Wall. Well, because look,
but
if you're
who's
going to
interested
tee
in
up
that?
running,
Who's
No,
interested? Who's interested in her view of what mistakes she made?
if she's going to run again, you would. I mean, that's
A
the key. If she's going
publisher?
to get
A
well, because
publisher?
you're teeing up the next campaign. You're teeing up when she does the book tour. You're teasing for the next run, right? A
yeah,
la
but
Hillary
look
in.
again, not to having been through this process, coming out of a White House. To Mark's point, I sat in a room and they're basically like, "Give us five stories," and they go
Yeah,
back to you and say, "All right, take me down that story. What are you willing to say? Can you say that the
correct.
president yelled at you and told you you were a jerk
And
and that
and
no one's
and,
ever heard
and
that
you know what?
before?"
And you know what else they're going to say? They're going to say, "Can someone else report this before your book comes out?"
That's I was about to say, and they want to know is this going to break in this book, right? Because
Yeah.
they need stories to roll out to get books to get people to buy them in advance. And if
As
you're just and look, I like I said, I went through this process, and they sit in the room and they go after you. Take me down that path. Okay, can you say something about how the president reacted that no one's ever heard? Well, okay, but did he yell at you? Did he yell at Mike Pence? Did he say this? Did he? Okay,
Correct.
he treat
Correct. And
someone.
what and you're 100% right. And what I'm saying is the only stories I can think of that would be of public interest that would sell books are for her to dime out herself or Joe
Yep.
Biden. And I don't
Yeah.
think she'll do either of those things.
Right.
I mean,
Talking about the future, it's
Are
like,
you saying she's going to be timid and cautious?
exactly. Exactly. But also, I mean, obviously, as Sean correctly said, this has to do with whether she wants to maintain her political viability. I
right.
was surprised that NBC leaned so hard into, their sources did, into the notion that she's pretty much doing a book. A, because I don't know. I mean, I gave you for her speaking fee and her book deal, I gave you what I think the ceiling is. I don't think she'll get those things. I think she's going to be terribly disappointed and what the market tells her on both speaking fees and on the book deal.